First, a quick note about the Q&A we're going to have after the presentation. You can go into the Appian Events app to log in, find this session. You'll be able to ask questions during the session. I've got a tablet up here where they'll appear as you ask them, and we can address them at the end. If we don't get to them live during the presentation, I'll be down here for a few minutes afterwards. We can talk in person. If I don't get to your question, then I'm able to answer that question through the app. You'll probably get an answer from me later today. So with that said, oh, there we go. Yeah, my mic wasn't on when I said it earlier, so just to say it again, we're here to talk about getting more of your users, of your organization, the power of low code and no code. But maybe let's start with why agility? Like, surely this happens to you at least some of the time, where problems come at you and projects come to your teams in a measured and ordered and predictable way, and they get to work on them with the process they prefer and take their time and collaborate while they're doing it, maybe add a little bit of flair on top of that extra execution. Sit back and consider how best to do it next time. That would be nice. I think more often, projects come at us a little bit faster than we feel we have time for, and we are under pressure to execute as quickly as possible. There's not always as much time as we'd like to consider how that process is going, to reflectively say, well, what do we want to tweak about it? How is that other team doing the same process? Maybe we can collaborate with them. And it can feel chaotic, it can feel a little bit unplanned, and eventually, maybe something actually falls through the cracks. Hopefully I'm not stressing any of you out. Hopefully this isn't your average Tuesday, but this is the kind of agility and collaboration that you need. You need to be able to coordinate across teams. You need to be able to coordinate across the many systems that you maintain. Maybe most importantly, you need to be able to coordinate between IT and the business, between the team that is responsible for technology and systems and between the teams that are responsible for the business of your organization. And that collaboration is where we're going to focus on our conversation today. Those projects that you need to collaborate on can take a number of different forms. You might be digitizing a process for the first time, bringing it into a new application, a net new investment. Maybe more commonly, though, you are extending something that you already own by just a little bit and deciding which technology that extra extension, that one more process, is going to be built in. Or you're working to provide simplification for your users, to give them a unified experience where you haven't gotten rid of all of those legacy systems yet, you haven't fully transformed them, but you have provided a unified end user experience so that your organization, your users at least don't have to swivel between 6 different technologies just to get a single piece of work done. We're going to focus a little bit more on the right half of that slide today in talking about examples and showing demos of that collaboration. And just as you heard during the keynote, we're gonna come back to this categorization of the Appian platform to design, to automate, and to optimize. Here today for design, we're gonna talk about designing the experiences for your users. Whether they are, no matter what platform they're on, no matter what audience you're trying to reach, you want to be able to design it once and have it available wherever you need it. For automation, we're going to talk about both data fabric and process that you already got to hear about in the keynote. We're going to focus mostly today on designing user experiences and the data fabric behind them. We'll touch a little bit on process and workflow. And that's to give us the narrowness of focus to see how collaboration looks within those areas. I'll call out later in the presentation if you'd like to hear more today about automation capabilities and about Process HQ and our optimization capabilities. I'll call out where else in the conference you can find more about those. These are the personas Malcolm mentioned during the keynote. We're going to look at these today and going through these experiences and seeing this collaboration. We're going to start with the pro-code and low-code developers here at the kind of the first half of this presentation, walking through what design looks like for them, primarily from the perspective of the experience the low-code developer has. And we'll see the pro-code developer's work show up in a number of places where they have made extensions to the platform that the low-code developer uses. When we talk about a low-code developer, this is the design philosophy that we're trying to imbue in every capability that we add. We start from first principles. We look at the deep-seated challenges in every aspect of data, UI, process, AI, anything else that you need to focus on. What's taking time? What's taking expertise? What's taking too much expertise so that there's only a few resources you can put on it? What makes it hard to change so that when the world changes a year after you've deployed the process, you need to be able to tweak it and do that quickly? What gets in your way of making an impact now quickly, but still being able to change in the future? Generative AI is making it possible for computers to understand human intent, and low code is one of the best interfaces to capture that intent. Have the speed and the power and flexibility of code with the structured intent that humans and AI can work with best. So that's why we invest in architectural solutions that solve core problems in each of these areas. The first one we're going to touch on is Data Fabric, because this is a great example of how we've applied that low-code principle. When we looked across our customer base years ago when we were starting this investment, we saw challenges in working with data scattered across the enterprise. And not just about data analytics, but impediments to intelligent closed-loop automation. So building a data fabric architecture was the only viable solution. We work with your data where they are, in whatever system they are. There's no migration required. You don't have the time for a migration anyway. You need to get to work. We unify that data across systems and use this live combined data to drive your business process. The impact of a data fabric is that ability to leave your data where it already is in the systems of authority that you're already using, but to work with it in your applications as if it's all in a single system. Whether this is for referencing it, connecting it, using it to secure other aspects of data. You can use data in Salesforce to secure which data in SAP your users have access to with the speed and simplicity as if it was all in a single database. First, let's do a quick summary of how it comes together in the product. We have a number of options for connecting to your existing data, or we can create a new data model from scratch. In this case, let's say that what we'd like to do is manage data updates to records in SAP. And we'd like to do that here in Appian for the speed of connecting not just to SAP, but also to other systems. We're providing a streamlined experience here to capture the fields and the lookup values that you're going to need for this automation. And we're going to reuse existing entities that you already have and connect to them as we build out not just the new fields you need for this process, but the data that already exists that this process is going to connect to. We're working here through the lookup values. There's existing record types here on the right that we're going to quickly build relationships to. We know that these data updates are going to happen primarily to suppliers, so we connect with those. And that's it. We're now directed immediately to set up record security. These data rules are easy to define and apply throughout the platform. They apply not just to the application process we're building now, but these no-code visual security rules apply anywhere you use Data Fabric. So they apply in Data Fabric Insights that lives in Process HQ. Let's move on. With just a few clicks now, we have this brand new data model. And it's already connected to the data throughout your enterprise. So we made one new node in this diagram, but it's instantly connected to the rest of the data in your enterprise. And all of the data in this fabric can be used for the application that we're building. Now that we have this metadata, we're going to use it to accelerate the creation of the actual change process. That's the work that needs to be done, is taking a data update, providing governance around it so that it's not just made directly in SAP, so that you have control and governance over the changes that happen. Our forward flow action generation gives you a head start in defining the process that new campaigns will follow using the data that we've just defined. So here, the process starts out simple. That start form that captures the data change you're trying to make and writes the data to data fabric. But we can start from here and extend it in any way that we need to. Just by drawing the process, dragging out whichever nodes that we need, whichever smart services we need here from the palette. And this is one of the first places you're going to see today the work of the pro code developer. Because this process integrates with SAP, the pro code developer can expose the right API from SAP to make sure that when Appian reaches out, it does the correct thing in another system. That integration appears to the low-code developer here as just another option in the palette. They can use it the same way they would use any other process node. That pro-code developer might be defining that API with whatever technologies they need to and are familiar with. They have the flexibility to do that. Here, it's just another tool in the low-code toolbox. The actual process, by the time you're done drawing it, might look something a little bit more like this. Might seem a little complex at first glance, but this is a realistic approval process. You've got to go through multiple teams. Each of them gets assigned a task to review this change and comment on it, approve or deny. That approval might go back to an earlier step to get reworked. And this is not just where you can see the design of your process, but also, as you saw from some of the keynote demos, right from here is where you start testing it, running it, and monitoring it. This is where we're going to pause with our workflow and process capabilities for now, because I do want to get to not just through the low-code developer persona, but I want to show you how they collaborate with the citizen developer persona. So, but one more thing here before we leave. We're going to configure record events. These are quick to generate, and they capture the key steps taken in your process. This powers a few key capabilities of Appian. It just takes a few clicks to generate these. They will capture the audit history and changes that are needed to power Process HQ so that you can optimize this process. They also power collaboration that happens around your records and around your work. And we'll see that when we get to experience design in just a moment. Finally, we've made a model, but we need some actual data in this data model. And even though we're just in our development environment, we need good enough data to actually develop and test with. So that's a perfect job for generative AI to look at the fields of this data model and generate realistic sample data quickly to populate and use when testing. As someone who is a low-code developer myself, I've made a number of Appian apps. I have to say, personally, this is my favorite AI feature we've built. I don't know how many of you in this audience make apps, but left to my own devices, I would probably be entering changes like test and then test with 2 T's at the end, and I'd only discover 3 versions of the app later that I wasn't handling long values well enough. With AI here to generate sample data, it significantly improves your ability to move quickly while still designing well. All right, let's move on and look at experience design. Sail is our design system within Appian, and it has a few key goals and capabilities. It comes with a library of pre-baked components that allow you to beautifully design any interface that you need. Those components automatically operate on any platform and for any audience. So when you've built an interface in Sail, when you've built a UI, you can use it on web, on iOS, on Android. Next year, you'll be able to use it in a Windows app. And you can use that you can define that interface once and use it on any of those platforms. All of your developers on Appian actually are mobile developers. It's not a separate step in Appian. It's also not a separate development experience just because you need to reach a different audience. You can use the same interfaces for your authenticated employees and for public unauthenticated experiences, or even to go offline. Finally, all of these components come pre-hardened against common web security challenges like SQL injection, so that you can move quickly and deploy with confidence because you can build it once. You don't have to do separate mobile development. You don't have to do separate security hardening. You can move ahead with solving the problem that you need to solve. So let's look at designing an interface. This is Appian's interface design experience. As with many other places in our design experience, we've got an AI copilot to help you here. You can start your UI with a PDF, and generative AI will look at that PDF and turn it into a form in Sail for you. Here, we actually like to make a homepage for collecting and kind of co-locating all of the information about these data change requests for SAP. So we're not going to use the AI helper today. We're going to just immediately start pulling things out from the component palette. We're going to start with a pane and a header with 2 panes underneath it, put in a grid and a record collaboration component, and point them at our data fabric. And in just a few seconds, we have the beginnings of real, rich data on the screen. This is that sample data coming back. So you can see how quickly the sample data is affecting how well I can design, because I don't have an empty grid. I don't have a grid with 1 row. I have a grid that already looks realistic. 2 changes in recent releases. We're doing significantly more now to pre-design this grid for you. So if you take a grid and you point it at Appian's data fabric, not only do we populate it with the data, but we introspect that data model and we design the grid a little bit more for you, whether that's neatly formatting timestamps, whether it's identifying something like a status field that can be represented as a series of tags to make that grid more visual and intuitive for your users. With record collaboration, this component is backed by those event records that we generated back during the data design step. And this is where your users can collaborate around the work that they're doing. In the most recent release, we've added more capabilities to this so that you can now reply to comments in line and also subscribe as a watcher on a given record to get notified when other people comment. Let's jump ahead here to the completed dashboard. In a minute, we're going to go through this live, and I just want to give you a second to look at it before I do that, because one of the common challenges with a richer, more data-heavy UI like this is sometimes you keep adding all the data your users need, and the UI starts slowing down. We're aware of that challenge at Appian, and what we've done in the recent release is make it possible for grids, charts, and KPIs to load asynchronously. So you see here, the KPIs pop in first at the top, followed by the charts, and then the grid comes last. Each of these components appearing when its data is ready without making the rest of the UI wait or your users wait. If I'm someone who needs to use this home page every day to look at my latest tasks over on the right, and I'm deeply familiar with this experience, there's going to be at least some days where the first thing I want to do is click on my first task. I don't want to wait an extra 4 seconds for my data to load. So we give you that flexibility now in the latest release of Appian. We're always refining and expanding the power and flexibility of our component library. I've already given you a few examples. Some more that you will have seen go by even quickly in this are the fact that we have a header above 2 independently scrolling panes. We've made it possible to combine those 2 elements. We've added more control over the card border colors, over the KPI formatting, some of the tags that you saw on the grid. We've added more flexibility in the latest release to the variety of links that can be used inside tags. Individually, these are small, but we're reacting to our customers' biggest needs to continually expand the power and flexibility of that Sail component library. But maybe that makes you wonder, well, what happens if I need something you haven't done yet, John? What if I need something that is not going to come for another couple releases? That's where our Pro Code developer can come back in. If there's something that you need that truly isn't represented in the Sail component library, a Pro Code developer can use traditional front-end development technologies that they're comfortable with and define custom components. And these appear, again, like almost everything that the Pro Code developer does, they will appear in the low-code design experience where the low-code developer can deploy them like any other Sail component. So here, let's say that the grid is nice, looks great, but actually we need a more custom display. We need a custom calendar display for this information. A Pro Code developer can define, we'll remove the grid, get it out of the way. A Pro Code developer can define that custom component It shows up in the component palette, and it's easy to add to the UI just like any other component, so that whether it's through our out-of-the-box components or a custom component, you can get the exact UI and experience that your users need. We're going fast through this, and there's a couple areas that our demos don't touch on today that I want to make you aware of some of the more recent changes in the Appian platform. When we talk about experiences for unauthenticated audiences, we've continued to push our capabilities forward here. We've unified the localization capabilities for our Appian Portals offering so that it can use the same translation sets as our authenticated experiences, because we want you to be able to reuse everything you do across all of your experiences. This requires a slightly different approach because an unauthenticated experience doesn't have a user profile associated with the user who's on the Appian UI. It doesn't know what their preferred locale is, so we've created a way for them to explicitly change locales themselves within the UI. We know that you need additional capabilities to understand the way, especially the way that your public experiences are used, and we've added additional usage analytics capabilities, as well as the ability to embed portals in other websites. Maybe you already have a public experience that you really like in a technology that you're already comfortable with. Great. You don't have to make a single binary choice between using Appian Portals for a public experience or that technology. You can use an embedded portal to expand or replace just a small part of that experience, and have the flexibility to deliver the change you need incrementally. Another important audience for us is reaching offline workers. Frequently, these are field workers who either know that they're going to be somewhere with no service or connectivity, or by the nature of their work have very unpredictable connectivity. This is an area of investment for us to really move these capabilities forward. We've made dramatic performance improvements to offline experiences in recent releases. This is often optimizing for the fact that because the Appian experience is running locally on the device, it's more sensitive than usual to the hardware of that device, and we've improved performance here even for lower hardware devices. We've also improved the user experience to easily sync and see the status of forms that they have downloaded to their device to use offline. We've unified the data model for developing an offline form versus an online form. Again, we want you to develop it once and use it anywhere you need to. And finally, because we know that a worker who's offline goes a longer period of doing work without connecting back to the server, we've invested in extremely robust data recovery mechanisms so that no matter how long your field workers are offline, Appian will not lose your data. Okay, that's a very brief walkthrough of some, not all, of our data and experience capabilities for low-code developers, with some cameos there from pro-code developers. Now let's talk about citizen developers. Where do they fit into this picture? How do you decide when a citizen developer, whether someone on one of your lines of business units, can solve this problem versus a low-code developer? And here is where we're going to come back to Case Management Studio that Malcolm introduced during the keynote. He showed many of the user experiences of Case Management Studio, the experience it delivers to your end users. What I want to show here is more of the design capabilities, what this citizen developer will see as they build out a new type of case, and most importantly, how they collaborate on that with a low-code developer. So to give you the background, Case Management Studio is a no-code solution built on top of the Appian low-code platform. It's a no-code modular framework that empowers the business users closest to the problem to build their own solution, and in doing so, accelerate the development of more technical low-code developers. The low-code platform foundation provides IT teams with complete flexibility and control while giving citizen developers the speed to do what they need to do. And you probably have case management in your organization, but you might not be calling it that. So don't let the name put you off if your first reaction is, well, I don't I don't do case management in my organization. You probably do by another name. We, in 20 years of building case management solutions for our customers, have built a very deep expertise in this area, and Case Management Studio reflects our decades of understanding of what makes for great case management. So let's dive into the actual experience. Here, we're going to make a new case type. This one is to cases for updating the location of suppliers. And this is just to show you very quickly how fast it is to make a new type of case that can be managed. And you'll see at the bottom there's a number of different areas that we need to work through and build out to make this case type functional. To be able to more quickly show you the flexibility and capabilities here, I'm going to jump to a case type that's already been configured, which is new supplier onboarding. Each of these areas has already been configured. We're going to walk through it, and you're going to see how each of them ties back to the same underlying implementation as the low-code experience. So let's go through those one at a time, and I'll illustrate what I mean by that. Starting with data, we can see that the fields that are in this case type, Malcolm did a great job introducing the use of AI here to make a new field. And you can see with the diagram on the right that there's a hierarchy of the data we're using here. Some that is inherited from all cases of type supplier, some that is specific to just supplier onboarding. What you'll also see here is that this is a friendlier and simplified experience. And maybe seeing that is making you think, oh, this is a simple experience, therefore it's not going to be very powerful, and it's going to be siloed away from the more powerful low-code experience. Well, how am I going to decide which projects to use this for? Am I going to regret after using this that I used the simple thing when I wish I'd started with the more powerful thing? The answer is no, because both experiences connect. While this is providing a friendly experience to a citizen developer who's likely an expert in your business, but not a technology expert, it is still generating an Appian record type under the hood. And it's the same kind of Appian record type that we saw just a few minutes ago in the Data Fabric demo. That means that a low-code developer can come in and modify or extend that record type, connect it to other data in your organization in the same way that they could from one they had made from scratch. You're not limited just because you started through Case Management Studio if you wind up needing more down the road. We're going to see this a little bit more in action in UI as well. We're going to come here to the intake form. We had made a new field, so we're going to add it to that intake form. It was a field of type short text, so we're going to pull that in, get it connected to the right data type, and just like that, have modified the information that we capture every time we start the process to onboard a new supplier. And this is a good time to comment, why is this one being built in Case Management Studio? Well, most of the work for onboarding a new supplier happens in the approvals that are run within the line of business team. That team is the one who is the expert in those approvals, and that approval process changes rapidly and frequently. So by building this in Case Management Studio, that team can modify the approval process themselves whenever they need to change their own process to make it better without needing to go through IT. However, because this is still using the same Appian artifacts, the IT team has the ability to still integrate this with SAP so that at the end of a process, the new supplier is created at SAP appropriately. But let me show you what I mean by that. So this is the way that you see that intake form in Case Management Studio. It's still an Appian interface rule under the hood, just like we saw a few minutes ago in the low-code developer experience. And if you jump over to it, this is the way it looks. This is the same form, the way a low-code developer would see it. So if there's something that this form needs that goes beyond the complexity that Case Management Studio allows, let's say you need a particularly complex validation on that new field we just made. The low-code developer can switch to the full complexity of the SAIL expression that underlies this interface. They can make a change they need of any complexity and save it. And back in Case Management Studio, very little has changed. The citizen developer can still come in and continue modifying this field. They can continue adding to it. There's not a one-way trip to low-code developer land. What the citizen developer sees is they do see there's an advanced configuration, but even that doesn't stop them from adding their own validations on top of it. This is, in many ways, the heart of today's presentation. What we've done with Case Management Studio is make a way for citizen developers to make apps that serve them and their teams without sacrificing the ability to extend those apps, integrate those apps, connect them to other apps within your enterprise. And in doing so, that doesn't remove the future ability of citizen developers to continue changing them. This means both in the creation of your app and every time you need to modify it, you can choose the right resource and the right team to make the change. If it's a change to the approval process, let's go see that approval process here in Case Management Studio. If it's the approval process for this workflow, the citizen developer from your line of business team can come and view and change that process however they need to. If it's a change to the way the data gets written to SAP at the end of the process, the low-code developer can come in, go to the process model underlying this, and make the change themselves. So throughout, you retain the flexibility to decide who should address the next piece of work. The number of resources who can effectively make changes is greatly expanded without sacrificing your ability to move fast or have the power that you need, whether it's across teams, across systems, or, as we focused on today, between IT and the business. There's a number of areas that we didn't have time to go deeper on today. We looked in more depth at data and UI. If you're interested in seeing more of our process and automation capabilities, there's a breakout at 1:30 where Allison, who you saw in the keynote, will go a little deeper on that. I'm sorry, I misspoke. If you're interested actually to hear more about the way Appian can work with or be an agility layer on top of a technology like SAP, which we hinted at in some of the demos here, the 1:30 breakout goes deep on modernizing SAP in your organization. The 2:30 breakout is the one that goes deeper on automation, whether that's workflow, RPA, et cetera. And then we didn't touch in depth here on Process HQ or optimizing your processes. We saw generating those record events that will automatically capture data that can power Process HQ. If you'd like to actually see Process HQ at work in more depth, there's a breakout at 3:45 on that. My email is here. Like Matt Calkins said, we're a highly transparent and collaborative organization. Anytime you want to reach out to me, I'm a lead within our product team focusing in particular on our total experience offerings. My email's there. I'm happy to talk at any time. Thank you very much for your attention today, and we'll switch to Q&A at this time. Thank you. How do you secure access to the data and only particular data within other systems rather than it all? I think this is asking how we provide record level security across systems. And the shortest answer is that we built it directly into our data fabric. So our data fabric abstraction layer is what's enforcing that security access. If you have some other way of accessing the source system directly, you're not going through Appian's data fabric, the security won't be enforced there. But Appian Data Fabric has this record level security, row level security baked into it so that you can say, for example, that a given user has access to the customer support cases for customers in the region as defined in Salesforce that they're responsible for. And because Data Fabric is connected to all of those sources, it enforces that security rule, which might say that you can see only a subset of support cases now, but not all of them. So it is not just an access on a source-by-source basis, but on a row-by-row basis with rules that can span any source system. And the next question I'm seeing is, can you talk more about data security when it is AI functionality? That's a great segue. I wonder if someone did that on purpose. Because it's actually the security we use for AI is data fabric security. So if you remember the way Matt Calkin summarized this in the keynote, we are providing the right context to AI on the fly as you ask your question. So at the moment that you ask your question, we look at what your access is to Appian's data fabric, and we use any security rules applied through Appian's data fabric in determining what context gets sent to the AI. So if you only have access, I'll use my last example, if you only have access to a subset of support cases because of the security rules applied, and you ask the AI for a summarization of support cases, it will only summarize the ones that you have access to based on those data fabric security rules. Okay. Let's see if we've got any more. Great. What skill set or programming language is required for building new UI components? So this is the pro-code developer working in Appian's UI SDK to make new custom UI components for use in any Appian interface. Our UI SDK uses fairly traditional HTML, CSS, JavaScript front-end development tools. And basically what it does is accept a definition of a front-end component defined in those technologies, and then on top of it asks the pro-code developer to define the interface between that component and anything around it, which is really saying what parameters does this component take in. And that's the way that when you put that component into an interface, it can receive data or pass data out through the parameters defined on that custom component. But the custom component itself is defined in HTML, CSS, JavaScript. All right. In the case of querying AI, does it make calls to external data sources that could be traced? Thinking in the context of government or classified data. Great question. Even the query itself might be something that has a security or tracing concern, because the query will go to the AI, which is private AI through AWS Bedrock, and the query will use Appian Data Fabric. So making the request to AI itself is not going to go directly against your source systems. It's going to go against the data as cached in Appian's Data Fabric, so it won't directly make a new external call. Is the mobile offline functionality available in a demo environment? It should be, but I will need to double check on that. I can't think of any reason it wouldn't be. I'm gonna leave this question in the app, and I'm gonna answer it through the app after the session, after I've confirmed with my team, just to make sure. I'm about 95% sure the answer is yes, though. But you'll get a confirmation from me through the app later today. What training is available for low-code developers and citizen developers? What a great question. Both through our public documentation and Appian Academy, there are a wide variety of courses for developers of any skill level. And I'd encourage you to visit either of those places and browse. If you're thinking specifically of UI design that we touched on today, I'd also direct you to design.appian.com, which is where we centralize our resources about the Sail design system and have UI-specific design and training guidance. These are great questions. I love this app. All right, it looks like I might be out of pending questions. Is that what you're seeing? Okay. I will wrap it up here. We've got a few minutes left before the end of the time slot, so I'll be down here probably by, I'll be over there. I'll be down by the front of the stage if you want to come up and ask your question in person. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time and your attention and your great questions today. I hope you have a great rest of the conference. Thank you.